and welcome to Wild and Book Podcast. I'm Caroline.
And I'm Susan.
That's all I have. We're going to do a would you rather question. I think we're going to try and start to do this every week. So, Susan, I'll answer too, but you go first.
Okay.
Would you rather the aliens that first make contact be robotic or organic?
Organic.
Yeah. Do you have
You
an
can't reason with robots.
No, you can't. Well, but we don't know how advanced a robot it is.
Right. I think my answer is because I feel like robots would immediately assess the fact that humanity is useless and pointless and just be like, nope, we're done here. Whereas we might be able to appeal to the sense of the empathy of organic aliens.
Got robots that just immediately touch down.
Yeah, no. There's no time for this.
Wipe them out.
It's just Skynet. I mean, I feel like that's just Skynet.
I think I agree, organic. There's just something about it being, like, not robotic.
Yeah.
When I think of robots, I think of, like, no emotion, very cold. And, I mean, we don't know that organic aliens wouldn't be the same way, but I feel like there's a little bit of a chance. Fighting chance.
Well, I don't know. I feel like all living beings have some...
Are you about to get deep?
Sense of that? Yeah, I think so.
All living beings have a soul? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean...
Even aliens?
Depending on how we define soul, I guess. Like, I'm not religious, so it's not like a religious thing for me, but I mean, this idea that, like, you know, like some people have this weird idea that, like your pets don't have souls. Like, what? It's ridiculous. Of course they do.
Are wild. I don't understand how you couldn't think like this poor innocent little doe-eyed sweet baby doesn't have a soul.
Yeah, exactly. And I think everything, I mean, I don't know, I think everything does. Like, within its own, you know, like, they all have their own little structures. Like, ants have their own structure. That's why they'll, like, attack you have you ever accidentally stepped in an ant bed? They go crazy.
My feet are so fucked up from ants because I'm always barefoot.
Yeah.
It's my own fault, but...
So, yeah, organic. I think organic.
Okay, organic for me, too. I think that if you guys have a better reason or, like, why you think it should be robotic, definitely tell us. But
yes,
we think organic. I'm going to go first. Mine is pretty... Oh, wait, hold on. Can we talk about the... Nope. We're going to save that.
We'll save it. I know what you're going to say, and we're going to save it.
How did you read my mind? Okay.
That's what I do.
I would have just had my... Come on. David Parker Ray. Here we go. Did you know that was his name?
You know, I don't know that I could have just named him, but I think I've heard it before.
I feel like they always have 3 names. Or, like, when it's a serial killer, they always use their names like that.
Okay. I've always thought this, too. Like, why do they all have 3 names? But it's because, can you imagine if they were just like David Ray, and then, like, the hundreds of thousands of other David Rays are like, yo. Really?
Yeah, I guess that is a good way to, like, make sure nobody gets mixed up.
Yeah, like, it's just kind of, like, it's more specific. It's not so much that they all have 3, not like they necessarily go by all 3 names. It's just what we refer to them as, except Ted Bundy, which weirdly is just Ted Bundy.
What is his middle name? Do we know?
I don't know. Someone knows.
I was too busy watching Zac Efron in that documentary.
It was creepy, and I'm totally looking now to find out what his name is.
Okay, look.
Once I look, I'm gonna be like, oh, I've heard that before.
I feel like it starts with an A. Like, that's just me.
I want it to be Alan. I think it's Alan.
Alfred.
No, not even close.
What is it?
I don't know why it's funny. His middle name is Robert.
Oh, it's boring.
He's Ted Bob.
Wait, what's his real first name? It cannot just be Ted.
Theodore.
Tedothy? Is that a thing? Tedothy. Okay.
Theodore Robert Bundy. But I will now only refer to him as Ted Bob. That is now his name.
Awesome. If we ever talk about a serial, he's talked about so much, so I doubt we'll ever talk about him.
So much, and he's so. I mean, it's interesting, but he's also just so overdone. Like,
yeah.
Okay, he was 70s handsome. Fine, moving on.
He was 70s handsome.
He was, even though those eyebrows were like.
There's just something different about the 70s.
They were like living their own life up there. Totally separate.
He still had it going on. Okay, well, we're going to talk about David Parker Ray. He is no Ted Bundy at all. And, we can't actually classify him as the toy box killer because we don't know that he killed anybody. Did you know that?
I don't think I did know that.
Well, now you do. We're going to talk a little bit more about it. So David Parker Ray was a serial rapist, torturer, and suspected killer with an estimated 60 women killed from the 1960s to his eventual capture in 1999. So none of those can be proven.
I think maybe I didn't even realize that because what we know he did was so horrific that, like, I forgot anyone lived through it.
And I am going to say up front that I'm not going to go into crazy, crazy detail about his crimes. I will suggest a book at the end of this because the book goes into, like, scary detail about what he did. I'm just going to kind of, like,
there are also some YouTube videos that have him actually talking about it, like in his voice, that will give you nightmares.
I am going to play a little clip of, I'm just going to like get to it.
Hello there, bitch. Are you comfortable right now? I doubt it. Wrists and ankles chained, gagged, probably blindfolded. You are disoriented and scared too, I would imagine. Perfectly normal under the circumstances. For a little while, at least, you need to get your shit together and listen to this tape. It is very relevant to your situation. I'm going to tell you in detail why you have been kidnapped, what's going to happen to you, how long you'll be here. I don't know the details of your capture because this tape is being created July 23rd, 1993.
Ray was known as a toy box killer because of his intricate box truck on his property. He spent $100,000 stocking it with tools of torture and soundproofing. Fucking psycho.
Totally.
Ray was born to an extremely poor and abusive family in New Mexico. He was born November 6, 1939, and I just have to say that he's a Scorpio. Most serial killers are Scorpios or Sagittarius. I think some are Virgos, too. Y'all are just real dark.
Guilty.
What is Scorpio in your chart? There was one girl that posted in this group that Susan and I are in, and she was like, she had so much Scorpio in her chart, and I was like, are you okay?
Is everything okay? Do you need anything?
You need help.
Are people around you safe? I'm Mercury in Scorpio.
Ray and his family lived on his grandparents' small ranch in New Mexico. The living situation consisted of Ray and his younger sister Peggy, his mother Nettie, and his abusive father Cecil. The ranch they lived on was his mother's parents' ranch. So when he was 10 years old, his father ended up leaving the family, divorced his mother Nettie. It was decided with that divorce that Ray and his sister Peggy, they would be sent to live with their grandfather Ethan Ray, who was Cecil's father. Life with his grandfather was far from perfect. Ethan Ray was elderly and demanded things to be done in a particular manner from his grandchildren, and when they weren't, he would physically discipline the children. Adding to the dysfunction was Cecil, his father, who would pop in spontaneously, but never stay long enough to actually develop a relationship with his children. And when Cecil did show up, he would provide Ray with extremely graphic porn, and that potentially fueled Ray's sadistic torture of women.
Yeah. Super, super helpful, Dad. Good job.
Yeah. So Ray's dysfunction leaked from his home life to his school life. He was constantly bullied for being awkward, tall, and shy, which is kind of sad, but that was not why he became a killer.
No.
It just kind of contributed to it. So much of his school career, especially high school, he was alone. He spiraled into alcohol, drugs. He had a newfound admiration for, help me out here, sadomasochism. Sadomasochism, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
After high school, he worked as a mechanic in the Army before he was honorably discharged. There was very, very little information on his ex-wives and their marriages, but it is known he was married and divorced 4 times. He had 2 daughters, and one of his daughters actually joined her father in the kidnapping, rape, and torture of women.
I remember reading that.
Yeah. That creeped me out a little bit because, like, I just couldn't imagine. I mean, I have a good relationship with my dad, but sex with your dad, like, and she wasn't having sex with him, but anything sex related is just, I feel a little cringy.
I know. Mm-mm.
Yeah. So Ray's toy box consisted of an intricate setup of whips, chains, pulleys, straps, clamps, leg spreader bars, surgical blades and saws, and multiple homemade and regular sex toys. There's a pretty intricate picture out there. I'm pretty sure it's on the FBI website. I can link it, of everything in.
It's horrific.
I mean, it's really like a scary movie. And he had.
Yeah.
I mean, in one of the pictures I saw, he had what looked like a dildo, but it was homemade, and it was like a pipe with a curved end. I mean, it was like a PVC pipe with a curved end.
Ugh.
I stopped looking after that. I mean, I
the
saw
whole
the
thing.
picture.
I mean, just the visual is like just seeing it, looking at a picture of it, it's horrific. I cannot imagine waking up like attached to that chair.
And some of his victims didn't wake up because he did drug them. So some of them didn't wake up, but the few who did, they say they still have nightmares about it, which of course you would.
Of course, yeah.
Above the table, which had foot stirrups on it, it had a mirror above that. He also had a wooden contraption he would strap his victims to so his dogs could have sex with them. There was a lot going on in this toy box.
Can I just say, that is not normal dog behavior.
It's not. And, one thing I watched a documentary on him, and it said that he was just an amazing person with animals. Like, he would adopt them, he would rehabilitate them, and it just makes me wonder what he was doing to the dogs to make them want to have sex with a human. Like, how was he treating them?
Like, that's just not something that's not normal dog behavior. No matter how you tie somebody to a chair, that's not normal dog behavior.
No.
That's like trained behavior.
It is. In that documentary, it did say that in order to get the dogs to even go near them, he'd have to put peanut butter or some kind of food in the woman's vagina. Not just on it. He would put it in there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So yeah, it's definitely a trigger warning for this whole episode. I probably should have said that. I'll put that in the description.
Probably. Hey, now that we're halfway in, trigger warning.
Trigger warning. Okay, so the sick game he played ended in 1999 with his last victim, and her name was Cynthia Vigil. And she actually escaped. So Cynthia was an extreme fighter. She was aware that she had been held captive for 3 days. According to Cynthia's interviews with Oxygen, which I believe she did in 2011, she met Ray when she was working as a sex worker. She arrived at his RV, and immediately she knew something wasn't right because when she stepped inside, he locked the door behind her and he said he was an undercover police officer. Which,
oh, hell no.
No. No, that's not how that works.
No.
At this point in his career, he had an accomplice, and I will talk a little bit about her later, but her name was Cindy Hendy. Cindy Hendy. Julia Gulia. Cynthia waited anxiously for Ray to leave for work, and she took full advantage of the fact that Hindi had left the keys to her chains on a nearby table. So when Hindi stepped out to take a phone call, Cynthia began to unlock her chains. Hindi soon realized what was happening, tried to stop Cynthia by breaking a table lamp over her head. Cynthia was not going down without a fucking fight. So as the two women struggled, Cynthia grabbed an ice pick off the ground and stabbed Hindi in the neck.
Well played.
Yeah. She ran as fast and as far as she could. She was naked. She only had on a dog collar. She was covered in blood from being hit with the lamp. So she ran to a nearby trailer that had its front door open. That's probably my worst fear, is having to escape and just the adrenaline that you're feeling, not knowing if they're right behind you, being scared to look to see if they're behind you. I think about that probably more often than I should. Definitely. Cynthia recalled quite a lot, including a recording that Ray had played for her. It was insanely graphic. It was super, super creepy. But he would play this for every victim, whether they were conscious or not.
It's very creepy. I haven't heard the whole thing. Like, nobody's voluntarily. No, that's not true. Somebody has voluntarily listened to all 50 minutes of that. I am not that person.
No, I couldn't either. But the fact that he played it when they were unconscious, I don't know much about psychology, but I just feel like that has to do something to your psyche. You have to have dreams about it, or like this weird feeling that something happened to you, but you never will know.
Yeah, because even if you're unconscious, you can still hear things. You just aren't processing them the same way. So it's still in your memory, even if you didn't consciously hear it.
Yeah.
It's just so creepy.
It's very creepy. Psychology is creepy to me, but also intriguing. I love it. I love everything about it.
Valid point.
So Cynthia ran to this nearby trailer. She kind of told them everything that happened. They called the police, and while the police arrived, the people in the trailer comforted her. So Ray and Hindi were immediately apprehended that same day, which they didn't even try. They didn't even try to get away. They knew that Cynthia had escaped, and they were just still on his property. Like, the police were not going to immediately come there.
It's like they were not prepared that anyone was ever going to get away, and like there was no backup plan.
Which is so odd, because some of his victims, he would keep them for 3 days and then just drop them on the side of the road, and some of them would see him, and it's like they just almost like they didn't care to get caught.
Yeah, that's very odd.
Okay, so Cindy Hindi, she met Ray in 1997. She moved from Washington State after an extremely troubled childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. She met Ray in Truth and Consequences, New Mexico, which is a real place.
Which is real. I was going to say, you cannot make that up.
No.
That's a real thing.
But I think it's extremely creepy to know that they did most of their torture and rape of women in Truth or Consequences.
Truth or Consequences? Yeah.
So her backstory is just as devastating as Ray's. I won't go into too much detail. There was basically sexual abuse, a mother who was an alcoholic. She couldn't afford to feed her children. Hindi was kicked out of her home at 12 years old and kind of forced to make her way on the streets, which of course led to prostitution and drugs, and eventually how she met Ray. The pair met and soon started to bond. They immediately formed a relationship over the combined love of rough sex, rape, and torture fantasies.
You almost have to wonder if she was if she was a victim, and then like he figured out that she was maybe more into it than he would have expected, so she just became an accomplice.
Well, she goes into it a little bit later on, but I think he kind of he felt this pull to her, and so he confided in her. And she didn't ask him to. He just one day told her all of the stuff that he'd done. And she said that she was intrigued. And that's why she joined him. So,
wow.
Definitely in both of their childhoods, there had to be some kind of intense. I think for Ray, it was more of his dad providing him with this graphic material at a young age. The abuse. And for her, it was just, 12 years old. She's on the street having to survive. She's going to come into contact with some fucked up shit.
That's essentially how Eileen Wuornos ended up where she ended up.
Yeah.
The story's so similar.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, I feel like these people are so fucked up, but I feel for any kid who's put in a situation like that where they just can't come out of it in a positive manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
So according to the website, All That's Interesting, Hindi admitted that Ray started to confess to her once they were living together. He said that he had killed once a year for over 40 years. And these are the murders that nobody can prove, but that's what she says he confessed to her. So from that point, like I said, Hindi was intrigued. She wanted to be involved in the kidnapping and torture. They referred to themselves as the master and mistress of the toy box. And that's in the 50-minute recording that they played for every person. So their first shared victim was actually a close friend of Hindi's. Her name was Angela. And they kept her for 3 days, and then they decided to release her. Angela did not report what happened. No, I'm sorry. Angela did report what happened, but for some reason, the investigation was never started. And I think that it was never started because she was a sex worker.
I was just about to ask that.
Yeah. Because Hindi was too, and that's how they knew each other.
Yeah, that's what I kind of expected.
So fucked up. Because, I mean, Angela was dropped in the desert, drugged, naked. Like, she was drugged, dropped in the desert naked. A police officer picked her up, and she told this story to him, and then nothing ever came of it. But once they were captured and the newspaper started running the story of the toy box couple, she spoke up again and was actually taken seriously. Hindi seemed to have no moral obligation to what Ray was doing, as she sat by and let it happen multiple times and would sometimes join in. Hindi did recall that when they were intimate, he never did the things they did in the toy box to her. So he was never rough. He was never sadistic. It was like normal sex when they had sex.
Interesting.
I think that's very interesting because I feel like when you reach the point of having to do all these sadistic things to get your jollies off, how are you having just regular sex?
Because I guess it's compartmentalizing, right? He's separating those things. They're not related to one another in his head.
Yeah.
Which is
that's true.
Super creepy.
It is. So when the couple was apprehended, it took literally no time at all, and Hindi completely turned on Ray. She let everything spill in exchange for a plea deal, which, shit, I would too. I mean, if you're already to that point, like...
I don't blame her.
Yeah. She stated that 2 other people that she knew were involved, and they were Ray's daughter, Glenda, and another man named Dennis Yancey. And I think it's just... my jaw just dropped when I heard that other people knew he was doing this, participated, and still let it happen.
Yeah.
And his own daughter. What the fuck?
That's super. And okay, but interestingly, only one of his daughters.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about the other one, so I assume she
Yeah,
just tried
I've
to stay
never
as
seen
far
anything
away.
about the others. I've only ever heard of the one that was involved.
I wonder if, like, if you found out that someone in your family, like your dad or your mom, was a serial killer or did something just heinous, like they were going to be known forever, like their name was always going to be known, would you change your name?
Okay, so my last name's Anderson. So
true. I guess if it was Bundy, probably.
Yeah, if it was something really obvious, I think I might. The people who would know regardless, and the people who didn't know would never have any reason to think it.
True. With my last name is Foster, and I don't think I'd have to change my name, but my maiden name was Clements. Maybe
like Samuel, like Mark Twain.
Yeah, with a TS.
Yeah,
Clement. Yeah. So I think I would probably change it if it was that. It depends on honestly how bad the crime was.
Yeah, agreed. For sure.
So according to Hindi, Glenda and Dennis participated in the torture and murder of Dennis's ex-girlfriend, and her name was Marie Parker. During interrogations, Dennis broke down. He admitted to everything. He did not hold up.
No.
He was not ready for this life. So he admitted he did strangle Marie Parker. During the raid on Ray's property, the police found the 50-minute audio tape. They obviously found the actual toy box everything it contained. But they also found a videotape the couple had kept of them torturing an unknown woman. And so from this videotape, police were able to see that this woman had kind of a rare tattoo. So they put that out there for the newspapers and the news channels to try and find her, because she was kind of like their missing link. I mean, besides Cynthia, they wanted like as much as they could get on this couple. So this was kind of their link to that. So the woman was named Kelly Garrett. She came forward after recognizing her tattoo. She recalled her own kidnapping and torture. And her story is just, I mean, it's fucking sad. Like, I'm going to tell it to you, but it's fucking sad. So just a few days before she was captured, Kelly was married. She was actually friends with Glenda Ray, and the two women were just kind of at a bar having a drink. Glenda Ray drugged her and attacked her as they were leaving by striking her on the back of the head. We don't really know how much more Glenda was involved. There's not a lot in the interview interrogations that she did. She really didn't confess to a lot. But considering the audio tape was made before Ray met Hindi, the mistress he spoke of, a lot of people assume is his daughter, and that she was actually pretty heavily involved in what he was doing.
Yeah, I would believe that.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that she was so gung-ho to drug, attack, and kidnap a friend of hers, she has she doesn't care.
No.
So when Ray was done with Kelly, he dropped her on the side of the road near her in-laws' house. She was drugged and pretty loopy. Her in-laws automatically assumed she'd gone off on like a bender of drugs and alcohol, and she was immediately shunned. So she couldn't remember
what
where
lovely people that just assumed.
Well, I guess
I was kidnapped, and they're like, yeah, okay.
Sure. So I guess she had a history of drug abuse. But I mean, she was clean and she got married, and I'm sure her in-laws hated her to begin with and questioned everything. And I mean, her husband wasn't innocent in all this. Like, he did not take her side. He assumed she was out cheating.
That's insane.
It's totally insane.
That's like the worst way to find out that you married the wrong person.
I can't imagine. That's why I said her story was so sad. And like,
that's awful.
The saddest part of it is she couldn't remember a fucking thing. She couldn't remember anything. She didn't remember where she had been, what happened to her, how many days she was out. She does recall, she remembers more and more as like time went on, but she didn't think they were memories. She just thought it was a horrible nightmare that was like reoccurring.
Understandable.
She doesn't know.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have the memory because you were drugged, that's terrible.
Yeah. So her story is very sad. Okay, even with the extensive amount of time the FBI invested on the case, they could not prove with any evidence that Ray had killed anyone. It's just so fucked up. He was set up for 3 separate trials. They were for Angela, Kelly, and Cynthia. Unfortunately, before the trial for Angela, she died of a drug overdose, and this was just a few days before she was set to go on trial. So Ray was convicted to 224 years in prison. He did strike a plea deal that would keep his daughter out of prison for whatever role she played. Glenda did end up being sentenced to 2 years in prison and 5 years on probation, and that is all we know about her.
Wow.
Because she never confessed to anything. She pled the fifth the whole time. She said, I have no idea what my dad's been doing. I have not been involved. Like, she was not budging at all. So she did 2 years and 5 years of probation. Cindy Hindi was sentenced to 36 years. She was actually released early in 2019, which is fucking insane.
That's ridiculous.
So insane. And she's just out living a normal life.
Yeah.
She's just out living her life.
Well, to be fair, she's still a convicted felon, so.
Yeah, but
yeah, no. Overall, she's just going about her business. Like, yes. She wasn't involved in any of this.
That always amazes me. And, of course I was on Reddit when I read this, but I just read that a lot of people are in agreement that the judicial system in America is sexist.
Oh, yeah.
She should have got just as much time as him. Well,
that's questionable. I mean, But at the same time, like, it is definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Women definitely are not typically sentenced as harshly as men.
No. So Dennis Yancey was convicted and sentenced for the murder of Maria Parker because he did admit to strangling her. He was released in 2010. He broke his parole immediately and was sent back to prison with a release date of 2021. So maybe I can write that down and keep everyone updated on when he gets out.
Be great if somebody could just bump him off between now and then.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Just putting that out there in the universe.
So during the trial, during Cynthia's trial, she got up on the stand and she said, "I do not wish the death penalty on Ray because it's too easy." She wanted him to rot in prison. But unfortunately, Ray died of a heart attack just 8 months after his sentencing. So he didn't even get to rot in prison. I mean, it's good that he's dead, but like, come on, 8 months. And because of that, he actually only served 3 years of his 224-year sentence.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sometimes things just work out.
They do. I mean, I think it's a good thing he's not with us anymore. I just hate that he didn't really get to pay for his crimes that he committed.
Yeah.
Okay, so the book
I would ultimately rather somebody die and not pay for their crimes than to ultimately get out and commit more. So
like Cindy Hendy, yeah. So the book I was going to suggest is Slow Death by Jim Fielder. Like I said, I didn't really even scratch the surface on this actual sadistic things that Ray and Cindy and the other accomplices did, but this book holds nothing back. So if you're able to handle all the graphic details, I highly recommend it.
And it is, I don't know what I've read is from that book, but what I've read about him is, like, for real, it's graphic.
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, I
think Saw movies or, like, Eli Roth movies as opposed to, like, typical everyday slashers.
I really wanted to talk a lot about him because, I mean, it is an extensive case, but I started reading the details and I was like, I can't share this.
No, and that's why I was like, "Ooh, that's a lot. That's a lot of horror."
Yeah, but I think it's good to know his background and
for
kind
sure.
of the border of who he was and the crimes he committed. There were 2 other points that I wanted to make about this case. Okay, so yeah, as I was scrolling Reddit, I stumbled upon a rumor that a police officer committed suicide after working the case. So what I found on that was a quote from lifeissues.net, and it says, "After spending 5 days in a trailer viewing the sadosexual evidence, Agent Rust, quote, walked out of the toy box and shot herself in the head with her service revolver, and she died instantly."
Wow.
A state official involved in the investigation said she probably couldn't handle what she had seen and was exposed to in that trailer. And then I did some more research, and obviously that's harsh. That's hard on you. Can you imagine your job is to go in and just
deal with the worst of the worst of the worst.
I mean, I cannot imagine. I didn't know how long she was on the force or how long she'd been doing this, but I read that and I was like, I believe it. That is the toy box truck killer, David Parker Ray. What you got? Oh, actually, let's talk. I wish I would have wrote down. Oh, yeah, let's talk about the monoliths.
Yes.
Did you see the TikTok of the girl? And she was like, she kept saying the word monoliths. And she's like, the high that I get from saying this word is better than the story itself.
I didn't see that. But that's great. These things are fascinating. So Caroline and I both wanted to do an episode on this, but like, there's just not enough to make it an episode. And I mean, like, the episode is, hey, these things keep appearing and then disappearing. Nobody really knows what the fuck's going on.
It'd be like a 5-minute episode.
It's like, so, okay, one interesting thing though, I know someone personally who went and saw the first one in Utah.
How do you know so many people? What the fuck?
I don't know. I went to high school with this girl. She's a really good photographer, so some of her pictures are just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like she got above it and took this really beautiful picture from above, and it is just stunning. But I asked her because my dad was like, I want to know if it's hollow or solid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now I have seen multiple answers to this question. She said that she knocked on it. And I mean, I've seen the pictures of her standing like touching it.
Yeah.
So I know for sure she was there. She said she knocked on it, and to her, it felt and sounded solid.
But
I've seen other people say that it sounded hollow. And then in the pictures that were posted that were supposedly of some of the people who took it down, there's one picture that looks like it's like wood on the inside and just wrapped in metal. But there is no way that she knocked on that and did not notice that it sounded like metal wrapped around wood. Further, the picture that I saw, when I first saw it, I was like, I didn't even really look at it that closely. I was just like, okay, I'm going to take at face value that the guys that disassembled it and supposedly said leave no trace were like environmentalists.
Yeah.
I can get behind that, and I totally understand why they would want to do it. But then when I looked closer at those pictures, not only does it look like wood with metal on the outside, but it doesn't look big enough to be the same object. So now I'm questioning, is that really pictures of the people taking it down?
Interesting.
Yeah. The Romanian one I think is my favorite.
You know what? While we're talking about this, I'm just going to look up the pictures of them. So we had Utah. And then we had Romania was next. And I think I saw an article today that said there was another one in California.
The one in California was a couple of days ago, and it's already been taken down. The people who took it down apparently thought that it was aliens trying to be better than God, and there was like a whole like Christ is King, like rip down the monolith sort of situation. Which
Jesus Christ.
I can't tell. The first article I read about them taking that one down, I genuinely thought it was a joke. And then I read more. What?
Oh my God. This article was just posted today at 6:45 p.m., so 4 minutes ago. And it said that an artist group took credit for the mysterious Utah monolith.
What's the name of the group?
Okay, hold on. Hold on. Calm down.
Because there was one several years ago in Seattle, and it was a group of artists. I'm just wondering if it was the same group. Breaking news, y'all. I mean, by the time they hear this, it won't be breaking anymore, but, whatever.
Okay, so a small community of stunt artists have now seemingly claimed responsibility and are even offering up more. Oh my gosh, they're offering to do more things like this for $45,000. What? They're known as the most famous artists.
That's like the most like plot of the new Batman movie shit I've ever heard in my whole life.
Okay, let me read you this paragraph. I'll post. It's the New York Post. So the community of artists known as the most famous artists posted a photo of the monolith on their Instagram account Friday saying only monolith@aservice.com. The photo of the 3-sided metal monolith includes specs of the artwork noting authentic dimensions and museum quality materials, addition of 3+1 artist proof, delivery and installation included, the most famous artist 2020, and added that delivery would take 4 to 6 weeks. I don't know. Where's the fucking proof?
Exactly.
Where's the proof that they did it?
Yeah, like that sounds like a really good way to get people to hire you to put up mysterious monoliths.
Someone heard that this shit was happening and they were like, oh my God, I've been waiting for my break. What is it?
Like, look, installation art is expensive. It's hard to get people to buy it. But hey, this is like free marketing. We might as well jump on it.
Right. So, that just popped up 4 minutes ago, but I don't know.
Like, I have questions. And I don't trust the New York Post.
I immediately was the opposite of you. And as soon as I saw it, without question, I said, aliens. They did it.
I mean, well, okay, so as soon as I saw it, my brain went, I know a fabricator.
What?
I know a fabricator. I could totally, I could collaborate with somebody. We could totally build a monolith and stick it on a mountaintop in Texas. And then I text my fabricator and he was like, "Bitch, I'm busy." He didn't say that, but he was like, "I don't have time for your shit."
Well, do you think that that's what the Romania and the California ones were? Like, what if the Utah one was legit and real and aliens put it there and now it's in a lab somewhere and then Romania...
So, here's what I want to say about legit and real. Is that art is both legit and real.
This is true.
And I think the point is obviously for people to... I mean, here's the thing. That thing was there since 2016. Provably via Google Earth. The one in Utah had been there since 2016.
I didn't know that.
Yes. When people started going back to look, they were able to trace it. I believe... I don't know if they could figure out exactly, but there was a point in time it wasn't there, and then in 2016 it appeared. So it had been there for a hot minute. My feeling is that I think it's all artists. But I don't think it's the same, and I don't think there's a cooperation. I think it's just people doing exactly what I did, which is, well, shit, I can fabricate that. It'd be so cool to just drop another one somewhere and let people wonder.
Yeah.
And I mean, realistically, we priced the sheets of stainless steel.
Oh my god!
Because I was like, I'm willing to put some money into doing that if it's possible. Like, how much? What are we talking? And it's not. I mean, if you have the equipment and or the knowledge, well, no, you have to have the equipment. You can't just have the knowledge. You have to still have the equipment. If you have the welding equipment that will do it, the materials are really not terribly expensive. I mean, we're talking probably $500. Maybe a little more.
It's totally possible that it's just people.
Totally possible. There are artists that already have the materials to make this in their studios.
I wanted to talk about monoliths, but I also wanted to talk about this article that I saw that was talking about new evidence that space isn't actually as dark as we thought it was.
Okay.
So basically, this is the Caroline version of this NPR article that I just read. So this is going to be fun. So hold on. I have to look and see what the name of the ship is that they sent out. Okay, the New Horizons space mission, which was supposed to land on Pluto, but actually just kept going, and they did not try and stop it. I don't know if they could stop it, but they said it's about 4 million miles away. It's past Pluto, and it's pretty much out of the Milky Way galaxy. And they were really interested to see if space was truly black. Okay. Because in the Milky Way, which is where we live, we have the sun. Like Science with Caroline. In the Milky Way galaxy, which is where we live.
Which is where we live.
Here. There's the sun and dust and debris. There's shit the sun's bouncing off of. There's space is littered. I mean, there's so much in space. So they went far. They went far as fuck, 4 million miles. And they said it's still light out there. Like, there's still light. And of course there's other universes.
Yeah, I mean, what I don't understand is and maybe I don't understand it because I'm oversimplifying it, but it's like, well, there's other stars.
Well, the thing is I'm trying to put into words what they did. So they basically had these images, of where they were, and they kind of...
I have to look at this while you're talking.
Okay, yeah, it's an NPR article. You'll see. I think it's just in Weird News. So they processed these images to remove all known sources of visible light. So after they subtracted out the light from the stars, the light from the Milky Way galaxy.
You're supposed to do that when I ask you if you want a cookie, not just randomly.
Oh my God. She's like, Mom.
What, Oz? Yeah. Do you have anything else to add? Yeah? Okay. It's like he has everything to say about space being dark. What do I know? Maybe he knows things I don't know.
Exactly. Maybe
he's like, I know things about this.
I'm from the future.
Right.
So, yeah, after they subtracted the light from the stars and then the light from the Milky Way galaxy and just stray light, they were left with light coming in from beyond our own galaxy, which I had never thought space was just pure black. What's your opinion on this?
I mean, like I said, look, maybe it's just because I'm oversimplifying it, but it just seems like, yeah, there's going to be, like, we know that our galaxy is not the only galaxy. We know that our universe is not the only universe.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't there be other sources of light? The other thing about space is that, when you learn about the solar system, like in elementary school, which is kind of my frame of reference. Like, I took college astronomy, which is very interesting, but also very complex.
Yeah.
And, what I have always said is that if you want the vast majority of people to get on board with creationism, teach them the pure science of space, because it is easier to believe in something you can't explain at all, like an intelligent creator, than it is to believe in the pure science of, like the right piece of dust just happened to be in the right place at the right time, and bam, humans.
I tend to think about space a lot when I'm stoned, and it really sometimes gives me bad anxiety.
It's overwhelming when you start when you really start trying to think about it. And then on top of that, when you learn about it, like in elementary school, y'all can't see my hands. You imagine, it's like, it's like the mobile you make with like the sun hanging in the, the sun and then everything moving around.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But that's not how that's happening. All of that is turned the opposite direction, and everything is moving through space, and all of the orbits are spiraling along behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Once I understood that that's how that actually works, I'm like, fuck it, I don't even know. Anything's possible.
The scariest,
I don't know.
The scariest part of space to me is of course, the unknown, but just the abyss, like
the insane vastness of it.
We will never, in our lifetime, we will never know how. I can't even talk about it now because it's blowing my mind. But you get what I'm saying. It's just
the entire planet that we live on is literally like a speck of dust compared to the vastness of space.
Yeah. That's why when people say that they don't believe in aliens, I'm like, well, you're just ignorant to think that we're the only ones out there.
Why would, it's harder for me to believe that there's not anything else in there. It's like, obviously, why wouldn't there be more things? There's all of these totally unknown. I mean, we know about other universes that exist outside of our universe, but we also know that there are way more that we don't know about.
Yeah.
Because we can see evidence of them, even though they're too far away to actually study.
It's so crazy. So I dated an astrophysicist once. Isn't that crazy?
I swear there's a Friends episode about this.
We met on OkCupid. Do you remember when OkCupid was a thing?
Now that you say it, I remember there were commercials for it.
It might still be a thing. But we went on a few dates, and he was really nice. He was super down to earth. And he texted me one day.
It's kind of ironic.
But he would talk to me about space, and I would just be like, you are giving me anxiety. We need to stop talking about it. But anyway, it didn't work out because he texted me one day and he's like, I really like you, but you wouldn't fit in with my family because we all have PhDs. And at the time I was working like minimum wage at a tanning salon, and I was like, okay, watch me.
I would have been like, I'm sorry, like, did you want to date me just so that you could have this conversation at some point? This is all information you had.
Yeah. I'm like, you're the one who wasted, because, I mean, I eat, okay? I'm not one of those girls that goes out on a date and they're like, I'm going to get a salad. I'm going to get a fucking steak. Salad?
Yeah, no, girl, me too. If I'm going to eat, and look, I'll pay for my own, but I'm going to eat what I want.
But the thing is, I never had to pay for my own. He paid for all of it. Took me to see Christmas lights. It's like, why'd you waste all that time? Right. Anyway, I married a good man, and he's very smart.
Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for. I hope that astrophysicist boy listens to the podcast and is like, oh.
Me too. I can't remember his name though. That's how
that's hysterical.
Bothered I was by this.
You're right. You're like, I don't know, also, but he was an astrophysicist, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think he'd be really boring, honestly. Eventually down the line, he'd be so invested in work. Ugh.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay, so do you have anything else you want to talk about before we start talking about your topic?
No, my distraction. I guess this is kind of our little distraction corner. My distraction this past week has definitely been the monoliths. That has been like I'm just like every day I'm like, is there a new monolith? And by the way, if you're an installation artist, guys, it's like just a few $100. Please
do it.
Put up more monoliths. This is like making my year. Which at this point, like, it really wouldn't. It's just like the tiniest little bit of joy. So desperately needed. So please make more monoliths, because apparently my fabricator's too busy.
Oh, hey.
Like with work and shit or whatever.
With work and shit. No big deal.
I have no idea if he listens to this podcast, but I genuinely hope he does.
Speaking of making our year, our 1-year anniversary is on Thursday.
Yay! I mean, technically it's your 1-year anniversary because I wasn't here.
We'll just have to have 2 anniversaries. So we'll have our original, this is when we started the podcast anniversary, and then we'll have this is when we gained Susan anniversary.
I like it. I think this is a great idea. Okay, and cool. My birthday is Tuesday, so there's going to be cupcakes or something.
What's your Venmo?
I don't even have one.
Oh my God, Susan.
I have Cash App.
Okay, we're going to link her Cash App because it's her birthday. And, just if you feel the need, just...
Guys, if you guys Cash Apped me enough to get coffee, I'd be the happiest little camper.
Cash App enough for coffee.
Coffees, like Cash Apps for coffee would be amazing. But also, if you just posted and told me happy birthday, that would be kind of amazing too. Just whatever. It's whatever.
Either one. But I'll link the Cash App. Okay, yeah. I'm ready to hear what you got to say.
I am going to be talking about the haunting. Well, I guess maybe it could be considered multiple hauntings. The RMS Queen Mary, which is a ship. And haunted ships, I'm sorry, but haunted ships are just like so particularly aesthetic. Like hauntings are cool, but haunted ship is like next level. And I don't even know why.
Hey, when I was reading about the Queen Mary, I was kind of blown out of the water that the Titanic was so small.
The Titanic, so for the time when the Titanic was built, it was huge. But like not that far down the road, they're building ships that are like dwarfed the Titanic. And the cruise ships that people go on now are far, far bigger than the Titanic or I think the Queen Mary. I know that the Queen Mary is still considered a big, a large ocean liner, even though it's not still an ocean liner.
Cruise ships today are massive.
They're like obscenely huge.
They're like a whole city. But yeah, I was just amazed because I feel like the Titanic movie made it out to be this fucking cruise ship, and it's not. It's like a little big,
at the time though it was. At the time it was huge. It was like the biggest ocean liner ever built, I think.
It had a twin. I don't remember the twin's name, but anyway.
The Titanic and the Britannia.
Thank you.
Yeah, off the top of my head, just for the record.
That was amazing.
Watch me be wrong, though. Okay, so a little bit of history. The construction began on the ship that would ultimately become the RMS Queen Mary in Scotland in 1930. At the time, it was only known by a project number because it was customary to not name a ship until it was christened for its first voyage. Economic depression caused there to be a delay in construction. So for a period of about 3 years, between 1931 and 1934, it just sat where it was being fabricated in Scotland. These ships were literally built by hand, and they fabricated the materials used to build the ships on site. So everybody involved is a specially skilled worker, and there are approximately 3,000 people who worked on building the Queen Mary.
Wow.
And that's how the Titanic was built as well. These ships were being fabricated and built by hand.
That's crazy.
And like we were saying, the Queen Mary is nearly twice as large as the Titanic was. And if anybody's interested, there are tons, I say tons, there are lots of videos available where you can actually see, just if you go to YouTube and look for like the history of the Queen Mary, keep in mind there's the Queen Mary and the Queen Mary 2, just so nobody gets confused. Mm-hmm. But you can actually see some of the video footage from the 30s of them fabricating materials and putting this ship together. And
that is really cool.
Fascinating to watch. It like bending, like, you know, the beams coming out still like hot, literally like molten hot, and being bent into the correct shape for where they're going to be to hold the ship together.
Wow. That's an art for sure. Have you ever seen how they drop ships that large into the ocean?
Like the fact that basically they fill the area where they're dry docked with water. Mm-hmm. Like in
But they literally drop it on its side, basically, and it comes back, up.
Pops back up. Yeah. So because of the delay in building, and in fact, there had to be, so Titanic was a White Star Line ship, and so is the Queen Mary, but they ended up needing to, work together with another line in order to have the money to finish the ship. So it ended up being White Star, and I think the other shipping company or other ocean liner is Cunard. I don't have it written down and I don't remember it exactly, but they had two companies had to come together to have the money to finish the ship.
Yeah.
So her first voyage didn't take place until 1936, which is when she was named. The story is that they actually intended to name her the Queen Victoria, mm-hmm. but they went to ask King George for his blessing, because they wanted, Queen Victoria was King George's grandmother. They told him they wanted to name it after England's greatest queen, and he accepted, but said that his wife, who was Queen Mary, would be delighted. So they had to adjust real quick and be like, oh yeah, absolutely, Queen Mary. That's who we meant all along.
For sure, that's definitely what I was talking about.
Absolutely. This ship had 5 dining areas and lounges, 2 cocktail bars, 2 swimming pools, a grand ballroom, a squash court, and a small hospital. And if you watch some of the history videos, they show some of the things that are still literally like from the first voyage that are still a part of the ship, like these amazing like torch style light fixtures that are carved out of one block of stone, so that all of the color would be like, they wouldn't have multiple different colors because it came from different blocks. And there's so many different types of wood that were used in the floors and the walls and the ceilings. It is still just gorgeous. And most of it's, I mean, of course it's 30s, so it's Art Deco.
Yeah.
just phenomenally beautiful. The Art Deco swimming pools are amazing. So until 1939, so from 1936 until 1939, the Queen Mary was the most luxurious, grandest transatlantic ocean liner in the world. She carried celebrities and dignitaries and set a speed record that held for 14 years. So it was just like 3 years of party time on the Queen Mary. However, when World War II started, the Queen Mary was conscripted into service to be a troop ship. She was painted a gray camouflage, which is how she ended up with the nickname the Gray Ghost. And a lot of the luxury amenities were removed during the time that she was carrying troops. Mm-hmm. She could carry up to 16,000 troops at a time.
Whoa!
16,000 troops.
That is crazy. I don't know what a normal Navy ship can carry, do you?
I'm sure that now probably there are ships that carry more, but at the time, being able to transport 16,000... First of all, being able to transport 16,000 troops would have been a huge deal. Mm-hmm. Second of all, the protection required for that, because that's a lot of assets in one place. Wow. And actually, I'll talk about it a little bit more, but there was one of the tragedies that happened is related to her being a troop ship. And she was the largest and the fastest troop ship to sail at that time. So between 1939 and I know, right? Good job, Mary. From 1939 until 1947, that's what she did. In fact, towards the end of the war, she was used to transport war brides and their children to the United States and Canada. She carried more than 22,000 of them. And they nicknamed it the Bride and Baby Voyages, of which there were 13.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know that little part of history.
I didn't either. I knew that she was a troop ship, but I didn't know. I mean, I guess, if you're going to carry the war brides around, you might as well put them in the nicest ship you have.
Heck yeah. Give it a name.
So after 47, when she was decommissioned as a military vessel, she went back to being an ocean liner for about 2 more decades. Queen Mary was decommissioned December 9th of 1967 when she arrived in Long Beach, California, where she is now moored permanently and has been restored to be a hotel and a museum. Records indicate that 49 deaths happened aboard the ship, as an ocean liner. I'm not clear how many deaths potentially happened while she was a military ship.
Yeah.
She wasn't engaged in combat or anything, but I don't know. It was just, I noticed that everything I found said that it was 49 deaths as an ocean liner.
Well, I think that the only one I know of, I think is the same one you know of, when it was a Navy ship There's only one death that really stuck out, I think.
Is it the person being crushed by the door?
Yeah.
That actually didn't happen until the 60s.
What? Okay, so it's a different one that you're going to tell us?
That's the one, that's the most famous death.
Yeah.
I know that one person has fallen to their death since the ship has been moored. It's not clear whether it was accidental or suicide. One thing that they don't include the deaths. The thing that happened that was a tragedy during military service is that about 240 people who were actually not aboard the Queen Mary, but who were aboard the Curacoa. This ship was a much, much smaller ship that was acting as an escort to the Queen Mary. Mm-hmm. So in order to avoid, basically they moved in a zigzag. The troop ships moved in a zigzag pattern to avoid the Nazi U-boats.
Yeah.
It made it more difficult to target them, but they also had escorts, and a miscalculation caused the gigantic Queen Mary to strike her escort broadside and basically cut it in half. And only about 99 of the 300 and some odd people that were on board survived. So that's not included in the 49 deaths, which is why I question, okay, well, were there others that we're not including during military service? Or did we not include those because they weren't technically Queen Mary passengers? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The one you're talking about is probably the most famous specific death.
Mm-hmm.
It was a crew member in 1966 who was killed in the engine room. He was crushed in door number 13, which is correct. I had read that was just kind of like, oh, they just say it's door 13 now, but apparently it was, in fact, even at the time, door 13. It was a routine training exercise, and the doors automatically close, but he decided he had time to dart through it, and he was very, very wrong and was crushed to death pretty horrifically.
Oh, no.
So he was only 18. I mean, who decides that they're going to dart through an automatically closing gigantic door other than an 18-year-old?
Right, exactly.
He was like, I got it.
I think I heard about that from BuzzFeed Unsolved. I think they did an episode on the Queen Mary.
They actually spent the night on the Queen Mary during
Did they stay in that room?
So we're going to get to that. So his spirit is one of the ones that is seen on board in the engine room. He appears in the corridors near either in the engine room or kind of in that part of the ship, and then supposedly disappears right at door 13. So both pools are also regarded as being haunted. But this is kind of weird because there are some sources that claim multiple people drowned in the pools, but then others say that there are no officially recorded drownings. So I'm not clear as to whether or not anyone, like I said, I read both things and they were both stated definitively. So I have no idea which is correct. There are a few things that say that people did, and that has kind of been the apocryphal stories, is that people did drown in the pools. And I tend to think that initially I wrote no drownings were officially recorded, and then I had read in 2 other places that supposedly people did drown in the pool. So I'm kind of lost as to which of those things is factual. But people are, like, the pools are probably the most, other than the engine room, the pools are probably the most notoriously haunted places. A woman appears wearing a 1930s style bathing suit in the first class pool area. She is sometimes also accompanied by sounds of splashing and laughter, just kind of like what you would expect to hear in a pool. The thing that fascinates me is the wet footprints that so many people have reported seeing wet footprints, both adult and child sized.
And the pool is not there's no pool. Like, it's just the ghost of the pool, right?
It is no longer the first class pool is still there, but it is not used as a pool. At least not as far as I think there are still some restoration projects happening. I'm guessing that probably they would ideally love to use it as a pool again, but there was like a structural issue. So it is closed off.
Yeah.
But you can see into the pool area. They have let people in to investigate in that area, but it is not typically open to the public, and it is not used as a pool. And the second class pool, I don't think is still a pool. I think they've actually converted it to be a different type of space entirely. So they see the wet footprints, which is fascinating because that has been such a commonly reported sighting. I mean, that's so tangible when there's no water in the pool, but yet you're seeing wet footprints as though someone just hopped out of a pool and walked across the deck.
That would creep me out for sure.
Yeah. So there's another in the second class pool area. There's a little girl ghost that they call Jackie. And sometimes she's seen playing, laughing, singing, but she's also been known to ask for her parents or to ask for her teddy bear. And she actually has a name. And there's a claim that that Jacqueline Torin, who is supposedly who she is, actually drowned in the pool. But then I can't find anything that like definitively corroborates that as being factual.
I wonder if we could just do like death records.
You know, I tried to see if I could find that, and I just kept finding sources that contradicted each other.
Yeah. That's frustrating.
But also,
that's so frustrating.
Yeah, I know. And part of it, I'm sure, is the fact that it's, you know, like lots of other things, it was an ocean liner, so they don't want to release certain types of information.
Yeah. Like all sketchy cruise ship deaths and
right.
Sketchy
so
shit.
That's why I'm like, I don't really know. I mean, I could believe that the people did drown in the pool and that was just kind of hushed, not really covered up, but like, you know, they claim there weren't any deaths, even though there technically were. A woman in white, the classic woman in white, is seen in one of the first class lounges. She's just kind of seen at the end of a hallway. A tall, thin man dressed either in kind of 30s or maybe early 40s style suit is seen in and around first class staterooms. A lot of what happens in the staterooms and actually on the whole ship are auditory phenomenon, music, voices, laughter, phones ringing, and then also water being turned on, lights being turned on and off. Which
sometimes is the creepiest.
It is, but so the thing about a ship is that sound moves differently.
Yeah.
Because you have water involved.
I've never been on a ship like that before.
Okay, so the USS Lexington is a museum in Corpus Christi, Texas. And I've been on that ship. I've lived in Corpus Christi for a while. I've been on that ship a bunch. And when you are in the areas of the ship that are below the water level, the sound is very strange.
I don't like that one bit. No, thank you.
I have heard things on the Lexington that I couldn't fully explain, but at the same time, I have heard things in the moment of hearing them, I was like, what the fuck was that? And then figured out what was making the sound, even though it didn't like immediately make sense. So sound in ships is kind of
iffy.
Yeah, because it just carries differently because you have water involved and water changes the way sound frequencies move.
One thing I read on the Queen Mary is a lot of the staff that has worked on the ship has said that they have come into contact with a lot of the auditory stuff that you're talking about. And I would have to imagine if they're working on that ship, they're familiar with the noises a ship makes, which is another point.
You know, and that I think that's probably true. I watched one interview with a guy who worked on it as a tour guide, kind of I think late 60s time period, and he basically said I've never believed in anything paranormal before this, and all of my experiences took place within a 2 or 3 week time span. But he's like, but I at the same time I experienced what I experienced, and I don't have any he's like, this is just, it is what it is. This is what he saw, a woman walking through the pool area. And I think he's seen someone in the engine room. I mean, he's had some of the same experiences that lots of other people have reported. It was just particularly interesting that he said, I have never before nor since experienced anything paranormal.
I think you made the point in one of our first podcasts that if someone comes to you and says that they have this ghost story, who are you to say that they don't?
Absolutely. Yeah. And
we'll never know.
You know, part of the thing about it is are you experiencing a ghost, or are you somehow experiencing an echo of energy that at some point we'll be able to quantify and account for, that just currently we don't have a frame of reference for?
Yeah, that. And I went on this ghost tour one time, and the woman basically said at the very beginning, she said, you see and hear what you want to see and hear. If you come in here thinking, I want to see a ghost, you're probably going to see a ghost because that's what you want to see. So you're going to strain your mind and strain your eyes to see this thing that you think is an apparition.
Right.
And it's got to be the same with noise too.
But the other side of that is, are you seeing it because you're straining yourself to see it? Or is it there and you're able to see it because you've accepted that it could be there?
Yeah. Yeah, completely that too.
And there's just no, like, as of right now today, we just don't know what causes these things. We know lots of people experience them. And it's interesting that lots of people experience very similar things.
Yeah.
So there's some stories. So I'm just going to say it is worth noting that they have kind of leaned into the whole haunted ship situation.
They 100% are taking advantage of this.
They host haunted events, creepy events, stuff like that. So I think that's why some of the accounts that you read now, it's kind of hard to know, like, when did these things start being talked about? Like, was it after they decided to just really lean into it? Or there's a story about a man who supposedly went crazy while on board and murdered 2 people in a room.
Oh, wait.
He was discovered. He was locked in his room and a guard was posted outside. The story goes that after a few hours, he started banging on the door and begging to be let out, claiming that there was something in there with him that was trying to kill him. The guard, again, I'm saying, like, this is my huge disclaimer. This is a ghost. This is a story. I do not know that any of this happened. This is very much we're leaning into the haunted ship situation kind of story, and I don't know how much of it I believe. Supposedly the guard ignored him, and after a while he quieted down. The next morning the ship docked in New York, and it was discovered that the man was dead inside the room, and supposedly his injuries could not have been self-inflicted.
What?
That sounds like a real good ghost story to me, more than, you know what I mean? Like, there's
demonic.
There's too much of The Shining in that for me. Like, you're a haunted hotel and, like, we're leaning so far in. I don't know.
Wait, was that on their website?
That was...
Their website, they lean real hard.
They have so much.
Yeah,
and there's so much information that you can go, like, you can follow these little rabbit trails on their website so far. I don't know. I'll have to see. I'll give you the link to where I read that.
The thing about them leaning into it is they're letting all these paranormal investigators come in, and they've been on 2 different, like, TV shows, and they're cashing in on this.
Totally. So to that end, the room that the BuzzFeed Unsolved guys stayed in, room B340, which is supposedly the most haunted room, and has supposedly been closed to guests because people kept leaving in the middle of the night. But when I was reading about this, it seems like that story just started kind of appearing out of nowhere, kind of in the late 80s or early 90s. And it sounds a lot like a publicity stunt to me.
Yeah, because
to pull one room out of service and claim it's so haunted.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's the beginning of them just deciding, like, people are going to say this is a haunted ship. Lean in. Like, there's money to be made
just
here.
Open that room back up, though?
I don't know if they have or not. I know that I know that, like, I think they did, and I think they're charging a premium to stay in it.
I think that's because when the BuzzFeed guys stayed in it,
it was like empty.
Concrete floors. Like,
right.
Yeah, it was so empty. But
I mean, what better way to create buzz than to say, oh, we can't leave, we can't let you stay here. Oh, yeah. But for $500 a night, this could be your room.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I did read that they had reopened it, and I think it was pretty recent. And what made me chuckle was the fact that in the room they provide you a chest of paranormal toys, like a Ouija board.
Oh my gosh, that's actually really cool.
It's cool, but, like, the money that they're going to make on this.
But, okay, so I'm just going to, you mentioned that there were a couple of investigation shows. The original Ghost Hunters investigated this. It's season 2, episode 11. And then also the Ghost Adventures guys were on the Queen Mary. I know I've seen their episode, but I don't really recall it. What I do recall from the Ghost Hunters episode, though, is that while they were filming, someone, and they do not know that it was someone who works on the ship. It could have just been someone else. The ship was not empty. So they don't know who, but someone tampered with a camera in an attempt to fake paranormal evidence, and they caught it immediately.
Oh, no.
Unfortunately, it kind of upstaged the rest of the investigation because, of course, the rest of the time they were there, they were on guard for somebody to be trying to fake evidence.
Who was it that did it? Who faked it?
They
It wasn't
don't-
a member of their staff?
They actually don't know. So there was a stationary camera set up in a room. I don't know if it's the B340 room or if it was a different room.
Mm-hmm.
They had a stationary camera set up on this bed that supposedly, I think the maids would say the bed would be made, like they would make the bed,
Yeah,
and then they would come back in and the bed was, covers were pulled off the bed. So the camera was set up looking at the bed, and they're watching, like in their little mobile command station, they're kind of watching the feeds,
Mm-hmm.
and they see that something happens in this room, and they go in and look at it, and sure enough, the bed's been, something's different about the bed. But then they start looking at the footage, and they can tell that the camera, that the feed was paused, and then the covers were moved, and then the feed was unpaused, and they kind of they go through a whole, they're real good about like trying to determine how did this happen.
Yeah.
And they pretty quickly determined that, yes, it is possible for someone to have gotten in and done this. And they almost immediately were like, this isn't paranormal. This is somebody messing with us.
I wonder if that hurt their reputation at all.
I don't think it hurt their reputation because they immediately were like, this is fake.
Yeah.
Like, called it out right away and were like, this is fake. This is not cool. And they were kind of upset because they're like, now we have to spend the rest of this investigation looking over our shoulder to make sure that nobody's trying to create fake evidence for us to find in order to benefit them. And they did, they had some interesting things, like some interesting noises and stuff, but like that whole episode was pretty much upstaged by someone who interfered with them. So,
hey, as I was scrolling their website real quick, they have where you can book a hotel room, and they have all the regular rooms like listed, and then at the bottom it has stateroom B340, and then so if you go to the page, it says in their trunk of unique items to help you with your haunted experience, they have a Ouija board, tarot cards, and a crystal ball, and it's like you said, $500 a night.
I love it. I do. I genuinely do love it. Because I feel like I feel like people who decide to book that room aren't serious, like they're going to have a good time with it. It's not like serious stuff.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff does make me question like some of those stories. It's like, when did you decide to just like go completely in on it and be a haunted hotel?
Yeah.
Because there was a time period that like the guy that I was telling you, I was watching his interview about when he was working as a tour guide in, I think it's like pretty soon after it was moored in California. So in the late 60s. No, I take that back. He was there in the 70s because he mentioned that the woman he saw in the pool area was dressed more like, there's a kitten digging in a closet next to me.
I can't hear it.
I swear.
We've said it before and we'll say it again. If you don't like animal or animal noises, don't listen to the podcast. Because
he's just like, he opened the door to the closet and he's now digging around in there. There's nothing interesting in there at all. Anyway.
We're not ashamed.
So I take it back. The guy that I was listening to his interview, he was talking about when he was there in the 70s. So there were tours, but at that time they were told that if haunted experiences, if somebody has an experience or if somebody brings it up, they were basically like supposed to just sort of redirect.
Yeah.
Like they were not at that time at all leaning into it. Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like sometime in the 80s, they were like, fuck it, we'll just go all in on this. Why not?
Well,
And I have no problem with that. As long as they're not trying to fake experiences for people that they're claiming are real. You know what I mean? Like if you go to a haunted event, like I think they do some sort of I don't know if it's a maze or if it's more of I don't want to call it a haunted house, but it's sort of similar to that.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously if you go to a haunted event, you know that this is being put on.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that they're not trying to fake experiences for people who think they're having real experiences.
Yeah, that's true.
That would be disappointing.
That would be really disappointing. But I think it's cool. I think it's cool that you can go and you can stay in that room. And I probably would never just because it's $500 a night. But
oh, yeah, I'm not paying $500. I have a digital voice recorder. I can book a cheap room. Like, it'll be fine.
Here's the deal. When we get famous, which will happen any day now.
Any moment.
Because we're irresistible.
Obvious.
We'll go and we'll stay.
Yeah, I'm totally down.
Yeah.
I have stayed in haunted hotels before. Yeah. I've never paid for like a haunted experience hotel, like you know where you like Lizzie Borden's house or whatever. But
go ahead.
The Driscoll in Austin is pretty famously supposedly haunted, and have any paranormal experiences, except for the ridiculously good night's sleep I got on like the most comfortable bed ever with the best blackout curtains in the world. Is a really nice hotel.
Wow. I would definitely do it if it was for like the podcast and we could like, I don't know, film it. That'd be super cool.
So yeah, just do it for the hell of it. But yeah, So I mean, on the one hand, do I think it's is it believable that a ship is haunted? Yeah, definitely. It's been around for a long time. There's lots of energy there.
I think the one that's most believable to me is that 18-year-old getting smushed in the door.
I agree. And partially, I think, because that's a definable, we know that happened. We know who it was. We know, the details about him. I think the pool hauntings are maybe the most compelling.
The wet footprints. Hell yeah, that's pretty compelling. The wet footprints.
And mostly because I think it's important to remember that not all hauntings have to do with, like, somebody having died there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, sometimes it's just, like I said, like an energy echo. Like you're just seeing something that like there was an intense energy because somebody could have just been that somebody was very happy in that moment.
Yeah.
And that was just like really intense energy that somehow becomes attached to a place rather than like a ghost. So anyway, it's beautiful. The videos, and pictures and all of that stuff at the Queen Mary it is so gorgeous. It is still so gorgeous. If you have ever been obsessed with the movie Titanic and you want to live your Titanic dreams, the Queen Mary would be a really good substitute.
I have never been obsessed with the Titanic. It was so sad to me. I have a hard time with death.
I find ships are just fascinating.
Cool. That's all I have to say about it.
So that's the Queen Mary. She's probably haunted, but like maybe not.
We don't know.
Maybe not. Maybe the haunted stateroom is kind of a plant.
I would say go watch. If you like humor and paranormal stuff, go watch BuzzFeed Unsolved episode on this because I think it was good. But I just love their back and forth.
Unpopular opinion. I don't love them.
I love them. I don't love them as much now that they have their own network and they've branched. I think they've just gotten too big. But BuzzFeed Unsolved, the original, was, I think, really good.
Maybe I just didn't watch. Maybe I just didn't come in on them early enough. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't hate them or anything. They're not my favorite.
I understand that. A lot of people really like Kendall Rae, and I just cannot stand her. Oh my God, people are going to not listen to our podcast because I said
I don't even know who that is.
She's a huge, huge, huge YouTuber. She does true crime YouTube, but now her and her husband have a podcast.
I'm too old for this shit.
You are not too old for YouTube.
I'm shaking my cane at this situation. I really don't. There are a lot of like the YouTubers and like there's a bunch, people keep talking about TikTok accounts that are supposedly like the most famous TikTok accounts. I'm like, I've never heard of this person. I have no idea who this is.
I don't know anything about there's like something that I heard a lot of, the Vlog Squad, which I think is just YouTubers who get together. I'm on YouTube for miscellaneous shit and like true crime. I don't go for just vlogs.
Actually last night was sent a link to a YouTube account that I am now somewhat obsessed with called Townsend's. And he like tries recipes from like the 17 and 1800s and like dresses in period costumes, and it is so
wholesome,
relaxing and calming. It's just like like brings everything like just down a notch.
I will say, Rich and I found this YouTube guy. He bought a ghost town in California.
Okay, so I was just reading about this guy. The same guy that got trapped in his ghost town by accident?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh my gosh, you have to find out if it's the same guy. There was a guy who bought a ghost town, and then he ended up accidentally getting trapped in his own ghost town by a snowstorm. And apparently it was kind of traumatic. Like, I mean, he survived it. Like, he's fine.
Yeah.
But it was like, he wasn't planning on being trapped in his brand new ghost town.
I don't know if that's the same guy. I don't remember this guy's name.
I don't either.
But he's like restoring it to make it like an Airbnb town, which is really cool.
That is very cool.
His YouTubes are really fun because he not only talks about like restoring the town, but he explores the mines. It was a mining town.
That is very cool.
Yeah, he spent like a whole night underground, and he does some crazy shit. But I like him. And then there's this other guy. I found him on TikTok, and it's a small world because Rich actually used to work with his brother, but he explores abandoned buildings, which I love. I love that.
That is fascinating.
So yeah, that's who I watch on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't watch that many. I kind of only recently discovered Bailey Sarian, who is obviously just like awesome. I mean, she's great. I love her.
She kind of blew up out of nowhere,
too. She kind of did. The first time I saw her, I don't know that she had really blown up yet. And I was just like, I don't really know what I'm watching, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, I really like her. She's good.
She is really good. And she's silly, which I just love. Like she was on Instagram Live the other night. I just happened to be on Instagram. I was like, oh, I wonder what she's doing. She bought a mermaid Barbie, and she was like, the ones that you like have to like dip in hot water or whatever. Like
I have a few of those.
I don't have any of them, but she's like, you guys, I just decided I really wanted a Barbie, so I bought a Barbie, and this is what we're doing now. I was like, I identify with it.
Oh my god, yes. I love that. She's having
so much fun. She's like, this is the best time. And then she's like, okay, well, that was a really fun, 6.5 minutes.
Good for her. I need to get on
my She's having a blast with it. And that's why I like her. Just because she's just like, it is what it is. And like I said, the first time I saw her, I was like, I don't know what I'm watching, but I think I like it.
You might like Kendall Rae too. I mean, don't get me wrong, I liked her to begin with, but then they just got, I don't know, I guess there's just something about when people get really big, it's not as, I don't know the word I'm looking for.
It starts to be too structured.
Yeah. Which I see what you're saying now about all the structure. I see it. Because there are podcasts, I'm going to get hate for this, but I mean, Morbid is still one of my favorite podcasts, but I liked them at the beginning when they didn't know what they were doing.
And I liked My Favorite Murder at the beginning. I mean, I don't, like I say, I don't dislike them now. It's just,
it's different.
They're a little less, I identify with them less because they're more they're doing a show instead of just at the beginning they were just like, I mean, what the hell? We can do this. It'll be fun.
So what we're saying is we'll never have our shit together. And we'll
we promise we will never get our shit together.
That's our slogan. Come listen to Wild and Woke podcast because we'll never get our shit together. It'll always be a shit show. I'm pretty proud of that.
I'm okay with that too. I mean, like I said, honestly, that's when I start, like, some of the podcasts that I've really enjoyed when they did blow up and started being, I guess more professional and having a lot more structure.
Like having to get an accountant.
Like a real accountant, not like at a place where accountants work.
Or like a manager. I feel like it's too much when you have to. That's
great. Like, it's great for them that happens, but there's got to be a happy medium, I feel. Because I do think that that's when a lot of those it loses something for me that I enjoyed. Like, my favorite thing about the My Favorite Murder episodes early on is that it very much felt like a conversation I could be having with people I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like that.
That's so us. It's just a little conversation with two friends.
Exactly.
And y'all are just sitting there listening and talking to us even though we can't hear you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much it. Do you have anything more on Queen Mary?
I don't. Other than the fact that, like, go watch the videos, go look at the pictures. It is, if nothing else, if you're not interested in the ghost, that's cool, but it is so beautiful. And it's definitely a place I would love to stay. Even if it's not in the haunted room. Just anywhere. It'd be fine.
I think along with the blog that you're about to start, I'm going to each episode post the websites that we used and then also pictures that go along with, like, the cases. Because I feel like we reference pictures and then, like, we don't follow up.
That's true.
So we'll start doing that too.
Okay. I like it. I think it's a great idea. At least give people a place to start if they're interested.
Exactly. Thank you for listening today to our shit show. We appreciate all the support. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Wild and Woke Pod, and then on Facebook at Wild and Woke Podcast. And our Patreon. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. So I'm gonna launch the cult series on Wednesday, and I was trying to think of, like, a title for it, and I came up with that's definitely a cult.
Perfect.
Okay, so that is going to be the series, and it's kind of like a deep dive into lesser known cults. So that's exciting, and that launches on Wednesday. And then Susan's going to start her blog and all this content for you guys. So you're welcome.
So many things.
Okay.
Guys, all stories start somewhere. Be wild, stay woke, and question everything.